Hello, cooking enthusiasts. This week's video is another sorbet recipe, and I wanted to start it by discussing some cooking acids, something I'm trying to do in certain recipes, but especially sorbets, I would refer to as acid matching or complex acidity. That is, I look at the natural acid content of a fruit in this case, and then whatever ingredients aren't the fruit, I sort of compensate for the overall acidity of the mixture. I did that with the orange sorbet by adding extra citric acid relative to the amount of carrots that were also in that recipe. I am actually missing an acid called quinic acid, which is fairly unique to kiwis, so it's not easy to find a purified version. I am not using very much of this acid mixture, but making extra for potentially other applications. But you could obviously substitute it in the sorbet recipe with just citric acid. Now we get to the actual sorbet recipe, and we start with blending approximately half of the fruit, which has already been peeled and then measured. Once that is already pureed, we then start the blender at a relatively low speed, carefully with the lid off to create a little vortex. This arrangement makes sprinkling in the dry ingredients much easier, and they are actually fairly minimal this time. It is only a little bit of fructose for added sweetness, maltodextrin as solids, the usual salt and stabilizers, as well as a little bit of that acid mixture from earlier. Then it's really just about adding the remaining fruit and blending everything until it is incorporated and totally smooth. On camera, the final product honestly does not have the prettiest color, but that is kind of just unavoidable. The second little disclaimer is that kiwis contain enzymes, but also tiny calcium-based crystals that can irritate the mouth. When you are just eating regular kiwi, you don't notice it very much, but because everything is thoroughly blended, you expose those little crystals way more. So if you do make this, you just have to regulate the portion size of the actual sorbet. It actually does create an interesting sensation, but you just want to avoid irritating your mouth or throat excessively. As with all of my recipes, they refrigerate overnight, and on day 2, there's some ingredients to add, mainly honey and a little bit of white wine. Now, ideally, I actually have added these on the first day, but I didn't have the white wine and I wanted to add them together. If the other ingredients were able to go in on the first day, I potentially could have put the mixture in a much more airtight container to reduce some of the oxidative color loss. I also potentially could have added a stronger synthetic antioxidant or even added some kind of bright green food coloring, but it wasn't a big priority for me. These kiwis were actually local, which really surprised me when I was able to source them. So I really wanted to combine them with a little bit of local honey and a relatively local white wine because I thought it was an interesting concept and flavor combination. Whenever possible, I like to measure and add honey and then use another liquid ingredient like the white wine to sort of rinse out the container the honey was in. Then it's just about blending those ingredients thoroughly before resting the base in the freezer for about 45 minutes. From there, the recipe just gets churned like any of my other frozen dessert recipes. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. The flavor was nicely balanced. Perhaps some people would even prefer it a little bit sweeter, but I didn't mind it being a little more refrained. The honey could have been a little stronger, but the point was to make kiwi the focus, and I did like the complexity white wine. That little bit of alcohol also helped with the texture, and I'm very happy with the final consistency. Unlike my previous sorbets with either citrus or cranberries, I did not have a sort of activated pectin base, so I was worried about the texture, but it turned out really good. I'm also pretty pleased because the composition is 82% of the fruit flavor, and the rest is that little bit of honey, wine, extra sugar, and stabilizers. So, all in all, it is 94% local ingredients, which is pretty fun. And the appearance, you know, it is what it is, but it actually kind of looks like my pistachio gelato, so it's not terrible, but again, there are ways it could be improved. But anyways, that is it for this recipe. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching.